bed, that I can get you back inside your head. Before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give into the need and leave it all behind. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. All right, we're on. It is 10:03. We're a little bit late. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Follow me on Twitter at Peoples_Pundit. And don't forget to like the page on Facebook and subscribe on YouTube. All right. Best way to support the show is, of course, to subscribe to PPD, which you can do by going to ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. All right. We have a lot that I'd like to talk about today. All right. There was a bunch of economic data that went through. I know you guys all want to talk about the polling, and we will. But there was a bunch of economic data that we missed the last couple of days. It's important. There's some confusion over the jobless claims report today. I think, there's nobody cared when the Bureau of Economic Analysis changed how they not calculated GDP under the Obama administration, and then how they changed how they report annualized GDP under Trump to make it 2.9 instead of 3. But all of a sudden, everybody cares that to include the AP, the Associated Press, reports seasonally adjusted data. So I don't know what everyone is talking. They must have had like drinks at the local bar last night, and they came out and decided that they were going to come up with this weird thing about pushing back on the jobless claims report, which is a good report. All right. And yes, it's true. Total benefits is unfortunate, but that is, that's well, there's a reason for that. And we're going to talk about what that reason is. And I mean, the idea, folks, let me just put this to bed because I got a lot of questions on Twitter about this. The idea that you don't report seasonally adjusted data for the labor market is ludicrous. They fabricated this out of whole cloth. They must have made it up yesterday. I'm not kidding. They must have made this up yesterday. That is why the AP headline shows the seasonally adjusted rate and the seasonally adjusted total number. I mean, the stuff these people come up with, Laura, is it's really unbelievable. They, like I said, they really must have like powwowed last night and said, you know what we'll do if this job number is really good? You know what we'll do? We'll report this. We'll say that we don't report the seasonally adjusted number for the first time ever in the history of economic reporting in this data, in this indicator, and we'll pretend that it's the non-seasonally adjusted data. Look, we'll go over both and I will show you the difference, but understand this just so you know. There is always a difference between the seasonally adjusted number and between the non-seasonally adjusted number. And in truth, the seasonally adjusted number tends to be better, but it irons out. So people are like, well, but this week we had this and we had that going on. It irons out itself. That's why you stick to one indicator. You do not jump back and forth between them. You stick to one of them and things iron out. Sometimes hiring looks better over the course of the holiday, but it's really not that strong. Sometimes hiring looks worse when they lay off employees that were seasonal employees. You stick to one and you report that. That is the industry standard. I don't know where these people are coming up with this crap. Same thing with the Bureau of Economic Analysis. We have the emails to prove it. Under every administration, folks, the annualized rate at the end of the 4 quarters is an average of the 4 quarters. Under Donald Trump, they decided to change that to quarter to quarter, year over year. That has always been an alternative way of reporting and measuring GDP, but it has never been the industry standard in financial reporting and financial media. All right. So, just keep your eye on this. I mean, these little things that they do, there's no, like, in it, again, one of those things where the conclusion is there's just no innocent explanation. There's just not. All right. So, all right, let's get onto it. I know you guys want to talk about some polls, right? Let's talk first about Rasmussen. Oh my God, these people are killing me. Rasmussen. Okay. Let's talk about what Rasmussen says. So today they come out and they have Biden plus 3, right? Very close to what we got. If you guys haven't seen the cover of the Epoch Times big data poll, yours truly, the Epoch Times big data poll is Biden plus 4. However, and there'll be another story on the Epoch Times today. You should read it. We'll show you breaking down by groups the difference in the first and the second waves. All right. Because overall, Biden started out with a nice lead, a lead where I can understand where some of these media polls are coming out with their Biden plus 8s and Biden plus 9s. I'll tell you right away, that almost happened. I mean, that is looking like where big data poll was going to come out in the beginning of the tracking period. And then some other things happened. This is why we're big, firm believers in large samples. Different people participate at different rates for different modes. And if you rely on one mode and who is participating the most, you will not get a representative sample. I have and will, if you would like, to show you the difference in the maps again. This wave is not a representative sample of the American electorate. Even look at the Rust Belt, and you will see that there is nothing in Michigan. There is almost nothing in northern and western Wisconsin. That is like we were talking. There is some out west. By the way, they were more pro-Trump than the ones that were in Milwaukee. No surprise, right? But if you're only going to rely on the people who respond in the Milwaukee and surrounding area, you're not going to get a representative sample. And it is simply not good enough to not fill in this map. It's not. All right. And it's sad because, I find it honestly a little bit sad because we go back and we work with people and we say, you know what, that first wave, if you really take a look at it, break down, start to nest those variables, you can clearly see, and this is why I tell you don't fall into the trap of partisan affiliation and identification. It's not just how many Republicans did you get? How many Democrats did you get? That's not good enough. What did the Democrats look like? You could find a result that's too favorable to Donald Trump if you are only reaching certain Democrats. That's unlikely to happen this time because those Democrats are one of the harder groups to find. So that's just it. And again, this is not a secret. You can run into a trap if you look and just say, well, I got 30% Republicans. That's good enough. Where did the Republicans come from? What did they look like? Who are they? And when we nested those variables and looked, they were not at all representative of the national sample. And actually, I will pull this up to further prove my point, okay? Republicans overall nationwide, if you look in the voter file database, the very first round, it was the first night, right, Laura? It was the first night. The first night of responses looked like we were getting a decent number of Republicans. Not bad, little low, but we don't wait by party ID. And I don't like waiting for party ID. If you wait for everything else correctly, the party will tell you, the party split will reveal itself to you. If you look at exit polls from one year to the last, you will notice something. The electorate never looks the same, and it doesn't look the same by party. So you can't come with a preconceived notion of what the electorate's going to look like and then try to wait for party identification. I am in that camp. This is a long-held belief that turned into a split argument, and now it's a long-standing argument over what should you do. I am not a wait by party ID person. When you wait for other variables, that variable will change too. Okay? So let me just put that like that. And while I'm talking to you guys, I'm going to pull up something to show you. That first night, I am not kidding, was about 35% white in the Republican sample. It was completely unrepresentative of the voting electorate that is Republican. All right. Then when we made some tweaks and made some changes, I'm going to show these to you. When we made some tweaks, made some changes, and said, you know what, it was age, by the way, and it was education. So we were getting people that were, age and race. We were getting people that were too young and too minority. All right. They were not white enough. So when we did age and race, then the Republican sample started to look more representative. When we did not, it looked like for a minute there that Joe Biden was going to take about 17% of the Republican vote. I'm just being real with you guys. I'm being as transparent as I could be. That, of course, is not going to happen. Okay, right? So that should be an eyebrow raiser. So I know you see some of the other polls out there where maybe Donald Trump is taking 8% of the Democratic vote, and Republicans are losing their base. Trump is losing his base to Joe Biden by large margins, not just larger, but large margins. That was an eyebrow raise for us. And we're like, okay, who are we missing? This was the very last, and actually, I'll just pull it up. When we added those weights for age and for race, the questions turned out very different. Okay, I'm going to pull this graph up. It's going to overlay over top of me. Okay, this is only about, I think, 250, 300 respond, but you'll see the difference. This is the vote preference. Once we tweaked that and started to reach some people to fill in that map I was telling you about, okay? That's what his base vote share looks like. You understand what I'm saying? It was so low. And if you look at the overall poll, it looks like, roughly the same percent are undecided. All right. So he's losing about 6% to Joe Biden in this. He's got about 88% locked up, and 6% are undecided. So even if every single undecided voter went to Joe Biden, he'd be looking at a tops of about 11 or 12%, not 17. That, of course, folks, is high because not every single one of that 6.1% right there is going to break for Joe Biden. All right. So these are the troubles that you run into, and you have to learn how to recognize them. And what I am saying is, and I'm not trying to put anybody down, what I'm saying is, if you don't watch it like a hawk and you don't nest these things together, because most people would not have. All right. I'm just telling you. I mean, see, even from conversations I'm having with vendors, they're not doing it. The other people are not. They're just not doing it. They're not looking after day one and saying, they'll look at the top line and they'll say, well, how's my 18 to 29, my 30 to 44, my 45 to 65, my 65 plus? That's what they're doing. They're not saying, Okay, here's my Republican split. How young is it? How white is it? Here's my Democratic split. How Asian is it? Right? It's not. And then that's why I am a big believer in big samples, because the only way you can realistically set those quotas and reach and hit those targets and hit those marks is if you have large samples. Otherwise, you are stratifying and guessing. It's real nice to read those paragraphs on everybody's polls. All right. It makes them sound really smart. It's pollster speak for we didn't get enough, so we're guessing. That's what that is. We post stratified and blah, blah. That is pollster speak for we did not get enough. Now, of course, it's legitimate. Post stratification is legitimate, but that is not what we're seeing here. All right. In many, not all. I'm just saying it is. Right. In the end, we view that as that you are putting your thumb on the scale. All right. And that's not immediately, by the way, the first suggestion from one of the partners was maybe we should put quotas in for party. That's not what you do. You should not have to put the quota in for party. Your quote, something is missing somewhere else. Your targets are missing somewhere else. And it's becoming a serious problem this time. It is. It was a problem last time. It's just, I think, too, one of the analysis we ran at least provided some evidence that there are a lot of people who are home and have been over the last, it's not just now, over the last few months with everything that's going on with coronavirus. There is a higher participation rate among people who just never, what's the word I'm looking for? They're home because of coronavirus. So now they'll take your survey, but they would not have been higher participation groups if they didn't, if they were working and carrying on with their lives. So it is possible we changed our behavior so much, so dramatically, so drastically with this coronavirus experience that the participation rates and groups and percentages are being completely thrown off. There was some great brainstorming on that the other day. What was that, yesterday? That was yesterday, yes. Right? Yeah. There was some great brainstorming on that. Like, look, I'm looking at some of these Republicans that are 18 to 29. These people typically don't take surveys at these rates. They look like they're uniquely impacted by the situation. Could it be that that's why now they are participating on these online panels, or they're more willing to pick up the phone? It's a good start. I think we won't know until there's an autopsy done. I think we won't know for sure, but and if I do figure it out, I'm sure as hell I'm not going to say it, right? I mean, not until the end of the election anyway. Amen. And I think I am on my way to figuring. Look, ultimately, again, I'll show you this graph. Ultimately, I think we course corrected. We course corrected. That is the more reasonable response for Donald Trump's base vote. How do we know that? Vote preference, primary vote shares. We know Donald Trump has not historically had a base issue in the primary. He's had higher than average historical turnout in the primary, pre-COVID especially. And his voting, his support as a share of the vote has been historically high. So it doesn't really make historical sense, to stick with the correct word. It doesn't make historical sense that all of a sudden now he'd be running into some base issue where 17% of the vote is Joe Biden. No, you are not filling in your maps and you are not hitting your correct targets. And that is what is going on. So overall, now that they published it, we can go over it a little bit more. I found some interesting stuff. Trump's working class base is still there, but some of them have politically matured, I think, is what some of them anyway. The economy was doing better. And so there was a lot more support among people who say they have some college or an associate degree. And I think that's why whites in general, as long as they're not moderate and highly educated, and I mean highly educated, I mean have an advanced degree. We talked about this, the difference yesterday, postgraduate degree. We kind of found what the Marquette poll found, which is that a lot of this is media hot air. It's not really true that if like you've had any college education, you don't vote for Trump. That's not true. It does depend largely on race and where you ended up in that category. The enthusiasm gap, that goes to Trump. Extremely is the indicator that really matters. It doesn't really matter if, somebody says not at all, slightly. I mean, later on it will. But what I'm saying is the enthusiasm gap where it counts is in extreme enthusiasm. And Trump's got him on that. Biden has some very strong I think it's like people view him as like a generic anti-Trump candidate. All right. So I don't mean to attribute this to Joe Biden because I don't think it is about Joe Biden. I just don't. I think it's about Donald Trump. There's a palpable hatred they've created, and there's a certain group of people who would look at a generic other who maybe they don't view to be too radical and say, okay, I'll vote for this guy. So he's got some strengths among seniors and even some strengths among white voters. We don't know. Let's look at this by race. Let's pull this up by race. Okay. Give me a hot minute. We don't know what other people are talking about when they tell you, all right, that that the what's the word, Laura? I guess the white vote is closer than it was last time. But there's some other things going on there. Some of these polls are finding Biden leading with seniors. We did not. We found actually that Donald Trump leads with seniors, and middle-aged groups are also his second strongest group. But overall, Joe Biden is performing like a traditional Democrat performs, and Donald Trump is performing like a traditional Republican performs with certain age groups. That wasn't true in the first wave, but it was true in the second wave. All right. And it does matter with those 30 to 44 and 45 to 65, especially, because if whiter voters turn out disproportionately, and I'm talking about they have a high school degree or less, have some college degree, even he was doing pretty well among those with a bachelor, as long as they're working and don't live in metro areas. If they turn out at higher rates, then that would benefit Donald Trump greatly. All right. So let's see here. Let me just pull the whole thing up, and then you'll be able to see how I do this, folks. All right. Here is me, but I'm going to make me smaller. All right. Let me do that. Oh, Laura, I got to boot you in order for it to. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Laura. I'm sorry, Laura. All right. Just want them to be able to see as much as they can here. All right. All right, so let's look, for instance, and then you can see by party here, folks. You see that? So, it says Joe Biden and Harris are taking about 10% of the Republican vote. That is because of that first wave was in there. I mean, look, but critics would say that, that it could be noise one way or the other. So that's why really the fair and correct thing to do is to take the totality of the picture. Okay. So we got Biden up by 4 here, a modest 4-point lead, and 11% are undecided. In truth, I think we're going to be looking at 8-9% undecided. All right. Trump leads with men, Biden leads with women. That woman number was extremely ugly in the first wave, right? That's why some of it, and that's why some of them are getting that result that they're getting these Biden +9s. All right. If your sample is skewed to one group or the other, then that's going to happen. All right. In the second wave, Trump made some gains with suburban voters. So the suburban vote is actually much closer now. 6 points is nothing in truth. Rural Americans right here. I looked at this and I turned to Laura and I said, we made a textbook media pollster error somewhere, right? Didn't I said we made it. How do I know? Because Trump's vote share, yes, he's leading and he's leading big, but he's only leading by 52%. That's BS. We'll admit it. We'll admit it. We'll find it and we'll admit it. Yep. We'll find it, fix it, and admit it. All right. Or find it, admit it, and then fix it. That's the order. Okay. Because look, folks, Donald Trump is not going to get that small of a rural vote share. And the rural vote really is going to be huge for him. How do I know? Let's take a look at enthusiasm. Okay. By area. Okay. Enthusiasm by area. Who is the most excited voter in the 2020 electorate? Can you guys see that? Extremely. Forget about the rest. Because honestly, I'm telling you, we've gone back. We do care about we ask it, we put it, we make. But in the end, Laura, which one really mattered? Every damn election we do. Extremely. That's all that really matters. So who is the most enthusiastic voter in 2020? The rural voter. The rural vote, not the urban voter, which is number 2. And the suburban voter is the least enthusiastic voter. Okay. I know it's probably hard for them to see a little bit. Is that
I'm getting old.
And by the way, why is there I got this question. These are great questions you guys ask. The overall sample is larger. Why is there only 1,942 for the sample size on this? Because they don't get this question if they don't give us a certain answer. So it's called logic. All right. So if you want to ask a group of voters, but not others, a certain question, it's called logic. This is not a secret, Laura. Don't give me those eyes. All right. It's only preference on where you add these questions. So some people may not have screened out for enthusiasm. We did, because I really only cared about among people who were decided and who knew and who told us, what's it going to be? And they gave us an answer. That's who I wanted to know. All right. Let's see if I can get, by party, by the way, Donald Trump's extremely enthusiastic lead is around 20 something points. It's big. It's real big. Biden has a bunch of people who will tell you they're very enthusiastic, they're moderately enthusiastic, but those varies don't matter in the end. They don't. What matters is the extremely. I'm just telling you from my own personal experience. All right. So let's see what else we could do here. Voter expectations matter. Okay. They matter. This is the voter expectation question. Why do they matter? Ask the Brookings Institute. This isn't a right-wing thing. Okay. Ask the Brookings Institute. Who voters think will win the election? It's well documented. Has had more predictive value than who voters are telling you they are voting for. Voting intention in elections with polling upsets has been less predictive than voting expectations. Okay. And what I mean by that is, who are you going to vote for? Candidate A, B, C, or D. That is voter intention. Who do you expect, regardless, and this is how we ask the question, regardless of how you intend to vote, who do you think will win the U.S. presidential election? Why do we ask it like that? Because Gallup has decades of data on this question. And the only relationship that we could find, there's a lot of people who ask different things. Who do you think is going to win your state? That's got some predictive value in some instances. But in the end, that could really skew the results. Because if people are in California, who do you think is going to win the state? Right? If a Democrat lives in Alabama, do you think they're still going to tell you that we did not find, we doing the math, which is an ugly, long process. There was no relationship there, or but not a strong one, not none, but no relationships. All right. These are likely voters. We'll talk about that in a second, but a very modest likely voter screen. That's a good question, Laura. I'll bring that up. All right. I'll hit that. In the end, the best, most predictive question, going back, because we have so much from Gallup on this, the most predictive value, the highest predictive value was just nationwide. Who do you expect to win the presidency? Who do you expect to be the next president, right? Those kinds of questions. When you ask, who do you think your friends or social circles will vote for? You get social bias in there. You do. you're trying to find social desirability bias, but instead you're really just going to expose it, because especially some of us leftists, all right, Democrats, I'm talking to you. Don't get angry for me saying this. It's true. It's documented by data. Pew found it. Don't yell at me. And they are not the only ones. I'm just pointing to Pew because they're not exactly right wing. You gravitate towards your own kind. You don't like hearing other views. You'll unfriend somebody on social media if they don't agree with you. You'll block them. You tend to do that more. You'll lose family and friend relationships because they don't agree with you. It is overwhelming that you are the most likely person in society to do that. So if you ask people, folks, who you think your friends are going to vote for, who do you think your social circles are going to vote for, they're going to tell you people who are like-minded to them. So it's not as predictive as this question is. Now, the neighbor question I love. I do, because that's a little different. And that's over, you guys know, Trafalgar. And now Fox is even taking that. But the jury is out on it. All right? Or at least in my mind, the jury is out on it. I'm sure it does have more predictive value. I'm just not sure how much. I know I can not only quantify, but I know it has more value to ask. We have decades of Gallup asking this question, and not just Gallup, but media polls. So ultimately, we chose this one because it is the more time-tested, higher predictive value question. So what did we find? Almost a reverse of the voter intention. It was almost identical in reverse. 45% expect Donald Trump to win re-election. 41% expect Joe Biden to win the election. All right. And then you always got those jokers out there, guys. Look at the Joe Jorgensens, like 29, 14, right? You always get a little short percent. Yeah. I mean, just like Howie Hawkins and Angela Walker. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, but that goes to show that's Americans for you. They do that. All right. So they'll tell you what they think. And probably that gives you a little bit more knowledge about how much they like Joe Biden and Donald Trump than it does their true belief that Joe Jorgensen or Howie Hawkins will win the election. All right. Those are probably, and I bet you if we crossed them, we would find that they absolutely hate Donald Trump and Joe Biden. There are people, right, Laura, the one. There are some people, and this is why I love doing this. Americans are just funny. They are, and there's like some people that are just across the board. I hate everybody. I hate everything, right? Do you have a favorable or unfavorable opinion of Joe Biden? Unfavorable.
All of you.
Do you have an unfavorable or favorable opinion of Donald Trump? Unfavorable. Down the list through the vice presidential candidates. Unfavorable. What about Black Lives Matter? Unfavorable. What about the Chinese Communists? It's just over. They hate everybody. They just are over it. Yeah. So that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. I will say, from the question about trust in mail-in ballots, I think that ultimately you're just not going to see a lot of Republicans voting by mail as much and as higher rates as you did in the past. So there are about a third of the American electorate already who has no faith in the outcome of the integrity of this election outcome. Okay. That is a disaster. So it's a failure on my part. It's a total failure. I mean, I've only got a little podcast on YouTube. What could I do? Other than just try to educate people on it. But, but I mean, I ultimately, I was trying. The reason why I went over this for like a week explaining it, and then spent another week showing examples of it, even trying to give some proposals on how to fix it. There is a huge number of people in this country who understand that there is a serious risk to fraud, and not just a risk. I think when you start to get into the 30s, Laura, of people who say they have no confidence in the election results, when you start to get into those numbers, those are people that they're like, the jig is up.
The jig is up. Like, you're never going to, and this is, you can't do this in a self-governing society. This is the death knell for self-government. You have to have it's not just like that with democracy. It's actually, or not, I know you guys are going to be like, it's a republic. Self-governance. I'll use the word self-governance because they're right. It is a republic, right? Or it's supposed to be. They've chipped away at that. It's not, it really is a democratic republic now, because the idea of Republican government as a form of government has been killed with the 17th Amendment. It's been killed with the change in the Electoral College, so the electors, U.S. legislators choosing senators, all of that. I mean, those were big blows to actual low R republicanism, small r. So anyway, when you have a democracy, regime credibility, no matter where you are, dictatorship, no matter what it is, regime credibility is the heart of government, stable government. When you lose regime credibility, you destabilize and your regime will be toppled. That's just how it works. That's the world. Democracy or self-governance of any kind is more important because it's based on the idea of representation, and right. So if people don't have any integrity in the election result, it all comes crumbling down. There's nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. And here, that brings me to William Barr.
This is what he said. So let them send it in, the email, the voting by mail, and let them go vote the ballot. Let them send in the ballot, and then let them go vote. And if the system is as good as they say it is, then obviously they won't be able to vote. It sounds like he's encouraging people to break the law and try to vote twice.
Well, I don't know exactly what he was saying, but it seems to me what he's saying is he's trying to make the point that the ability to monitor this system is not good. And if it was so good, if you tried to vote a second time, you would be caught if you voted in person.
That would be illegal if they did that. If somebody mailed in a ballot and then actually showed up to vote in person, that would be illegal.
I don't know what the law in the particular state says.
You can't vote twice.
Well, I don't know what the law in the particular state says, and when that vote becomes final.
Is there any state that says you can vote twice?
Well, there's some, maybe that you can change your vote up to a particular time. I don't know what the law is, so I'm not going to offer.
He was saying test the system.
If you know what he's saying, why are you asking me what he's saying?
He doesn't believe in the mail-in voting. You're the Attorney General of the United States.
Why does you? Yeah.
He said if you expand mail-in voting, this is the president.
This is,
it's reckless.
Well, this is a sort of cheap talk to get around the fundamental problem, which is the bipartisan commission chaired by Jimmy Carter and James Baker said back in 2009 that mail-in voting is fraught with the risk of fraud and coercion.
But since then, there have been a lot of investigations that haven't proved it.
Let me talk.
Yeah, please.
And since that time, there have been, in the newspapers, in networks, academic studies saying it is open to fraud and coercion. The only time the narrative changed is after this administration came in. But elections that have been held with mail have found substantial fraud and coercion. For example, we indicted someone in Texas, 1,700 ballots collected from people who could vote. He made them out and voted for the person he wanted to. Okay? Because that kind of thing happens with mail-in ballots.
Yeah, so William Barr is the only adult in the District of Columbia. All right. He may be the only adult in the federal government currently. Really. It was cheap talk. He nailed it with that line. It was cheap talk to, and this is what the media does, cheap talk to avoid talking about the substance of an issue. All right. Absolutely nailed it. Completely. That actually was the reason why I started the series that I started a couple of weeks ago on this show, because the media was using certain inaccuracies. While Trump was right, generally speaking, about the overall threat, he was wrong about the specifics on the issue. And they were using that kind of like cheap gotcha and of the small little inaccuracies, really, in the big picture. They were using that to skirt the conversation surrounding the substance of the debate. And William Barr nailed it right there. And then people like Wolf Blitzer, and he nailed it with that response too that I'm about to bring up. People like Wolf Blitzer and others in the media continue to just ramble on with this talking point. Well, it's not proven. It's not proven. William Barr just fires back with, we've indicted people. Like, what other proof do you want? What would be proof for Wolf Blitzer? An article in the New York Post from a person who does it for a living for the Democratic Party? Because that was out the other day. I mean, that's why I'm saying William Barr should give that guy immunity and let him just come forward and tell us. Would that serve as proof? The indictments don't serve as proof from Philadelphia. I mean, it is now almost a certainty that Hillary Clinton did not win that many votes in the state of Pennsylvania. Do you really want these questions holding over our heads? Paterson, New Jersey just had to have another election because 20% of the ballots were fraudulent. What are you talking about? There's no proof. And this is like, because they'll point to these people. Let's go back to the Nadler clip. This is the woman who gave Nadler a hard time. Some of you may remember the clip. Maybe some of you don't, because there's, I'm sure, a lot of new viewers looking at the number. All right. Here's Nadler years ago talking about this. And then but the studies from MIT, When was the last time any study author from MIT went and did what Laura and I do, which is go observe polling stations, right? When was the last time any of them did that? The answer is never, because I have never seen any of them out there. Never. So look, this should not be a left or right issue, because we should all care about the integrity of our elections. We should all, I don't understand unless there's no, right, unless one is being sinister about it. Because years ago, it was a bipartisan issue. And Bill Barr referred to the bipartisan panel on this. And here's where Jerry Nadler used to agree.
Constrained to observe that in my experience in New York, paper ballots are extremely susceptible to fraud. And at least with the old clunky voting machines that we have in New York, the deliberate fraud is way down compared to paper. When the machines break down, they vote on paper. We've had real problems. So there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way. I'm simply observing that as a problem. There's got to be a way of getting the best of our methodologies.
But in fact, the MIT studies have shown that hand-counted paper ballots are among the most reliable. And at least if there's a miscount, you can discover it. You can't discover miscounts with these machines.
Then maybe optical scan with paper. I want a paper trail. I want paper somewhere. But pure paper with no machines, I can show you experience which would make your head spin.
And we thank you for...
I can show you experience. Folks, that's translation. We steal elections in New York. We commit voter fraud in New York. What other proof does Wolf Blitzer want? Like, once upon a time, Jerry Nadler himself agreed. I don't know what other proof outside of indictments, admissions. The headlines and local news reports are filled lately in the last 2 months, in case nobody noticed. And by the way, what we are specifically talking about with the New York Post article, that is what the Republicans in Connecticut on the ground were saying happened to Bob Stefanowski in 2018. I don't understand. Norm Coleman. Where's Norm Coleman? You lost your seat over this. And she goes on, but the MIT studies, I can't, paper means nothing. It doesn't matter if you have a paper ballot if they're not legitimate votes. We live in the era of technology. If I got hired to do this, we could fix this problem. And I don't mean me, but somebody like me. The same way we conduct proxy votes with software we have for unions and corporations. This is not hard. How veterans sign in to vets.gov or through the DOD or ebenefits.gov, Laura, this is not hard.
I just think it's ironic.
Hold on, go ahead, say something. Say.
Ironic, you need identification for everything, whether you're, buying alcohol to getting your license.
Why does that happen?
I have no idea.
Oh, I get it. Let's fix that. I get your gist, though. I do. I get your gist. Yeah, I mean, you have to use a voter ID. You have to use an ID for. But what I am saying is, we're in the era of technology. Voter ID could become obsolete, folks. You would never have the excuses that we hear about. Well, certain groups can't get driver's license. Certain groups can't get to go get a free state ID. You would never need those. You would never need to entertain those ridiculous excuses, because they would have to be verified the same way that anybody, if you work for the DOD, you know what I'm talking about. Contractors, government contractors, you know what I'm talking about. There are easy ways to identify who you are. We could do this all online. It couldn't be unless you I don't want to say how there's, but we could still safeguard against that.
If you want a paycheck, you need identification.
I don't know what's going on with her mic,
I'm
but
fixing it.
okay. All right. But yeah, I mean, look, and that is like I just saw in the corner of my eye with the look. I spent that week opening up the voter files to show you guys there are tons of dead people on the voter files. Tons. There are tons of people with change of address flags on the voter file. I don't understand why. And you know what? If you are a Republican, you really can't just take this all out on Democrats. Republicans did have the White House, the Senate, and the U.S. House of Representatives for 2 full years. Paul Ryan's benefactors got their pockets padded, but you didn't get election integrity. All right? So, and speaking of Paul Ryan, where the hell is Paul Ryan? He represented the 1st Congressional District for years. His backyard has been literally burning, and he has said nothing about this. Nothing. He was the first to help the media perpetuate the very fine people hoax, which Joe Biden now says is the justification for his campaign. He was right there to do that, but he's nowhere while these radical, violent groups are destroying neighborhoods that he used to call constituencies. Right? Too busy on the board at Fox or something? I mean, what are you doing? What are you doing? Don't you care about these people? It's just crazy. This thing is still running over here. I'm trying to make the point before we move on. I just want to make the point. Oh, I didn't select all states. I want to make the point to show you why it could have been very easy to come up with a Biden +9 if you don't make sure that you're nesting variables and mapping out each individual group that you're collecting responses from, because they were extremely, what's the word I'm looking for? Even our Republican sample was not representative. All right. If you guys remember the beginning of the show here, let's let this thing go. Is it done? All right. Let's run the analysis report. This is what the Republican Party looks like nationwide. Okay. It's going to go. See, I picked every state here. Every single state. The only thing I did do was, if you look at the end, you can see exclude deceased and exclude movers. Party code is Republican or inferred Republican, which means they voted in multiple Republican primary. For states that don't have voter registration by party, there has to be a way to identify these voters. They're identified through past voting behaviors and a slew of other things, like 400 other data points, whether or not they give to certain causes. What kind of, that's a whole show. All right. But while it runs and does its course, while it's running its course here, the point is, no joke, one section of our Republican sample was not even half white. It was extremely young. And I want to show you what the Republican Party looks like. And then that graph that I showed you before, which is, let me just pop it back up real quick. That graph I showed you before, this was with the adjustments. All right. So you'll be able to see the difference. It's very easy
to make that mistake. This is a national database, so it's gonna it's gonna do its thing. All right. Oh, and to answer questions, there are different various ones that to use. I got this before, and that little pie chart you just saw before. We personally like Gizmo. If we need something, we've always called them and said, we need this for the online survey panel. You could do a lot with them. So we personally like Gizmo. That's what we like the most. Survey Gizmo is what it is. There are others, like you'll see a poll from Survey Monkey. They have online polling DIY, do-it-yourself tools, and they're good. I like them. I just personally, like we always have, liked Gizmo better. And then we use MarketSite for those crosstabs. So that's not a secret. And in fact, I see, what's his name? From Trafalgar uses MarketSite. Clearly. Why did this thing not do it? Did I not hit the refresh over here? Probably. I didn't run the count, I guess. Oh, it double ran. All right, after the break, we'll do it. All right, it's 10:51 already. How about this? Give me a question or two now. All right. I don't know if your mic is fixed, but give me you want to try? Give me a question or two now while we wait for this thing to buzz around. This way we can fit in as many as we can. All right.
Can you unmute?
I did. It still sounds crazy. I don't know why. Since it's crazy. Don't do it live.
All right, so
just give it to me. I'll repeat it. How about that?
yeah, Michael wants to know, why did CNN add Colorado, Minnesota, and Virginia in their battleground polls?
Because it's tightening, I imagine. Virginia to us folks would be a very heavy lift, even in 2016. Obviously, Republicans had a great election. Virginia was closer than people thought, but that was one. I don't know if there's even another. That's one state where we overestimated Donald Trump and underestimated Hillary Clinton, contrary to popular belief by some. We underestimated Donald Trump in most states and nailed the rest outside of Virginia, which we still considered a battleground for 2016. It's not. I don't know why they added that, if they did. Colorado is a legitimate battleground under certain conditions. Let's say there's a drop-off in younger voters. Colorado is younger. Let's say there's a drop-off there. Then it definitely could be, especially if Donald Trump keeps some of the increased vote share that he's getting. I meant to show by race. I meant to do that. We'll do that when we come back. If Donald Trump keeps that vote share among Hispanics, because he got 27% in 2016, we have him now in the 30s. And it wasn't like we never had him in the 20s. We had him and, he rose among black voters too. We'll talk about that more on the other side of the break, race in general. But that could legitimately be one. Virginia, I just don't view, folks, as a legitimate battleground state, especially now that I really got to dig into those votes by education. It is more highly educated in Nova. So it would, and that's where most of the votes are now. So even if Trump was to kill it in rural Virginia, like he did last time, and you saw it before, those voters are more enthusiastic than the voters in Northern Virginia. Maybe not in a place like Northern Virginia, though. Like nationwide, that profile is not as enthusiastic as rural working class voters. They are the most enthusiastic. It would be close, but we had our last one, Clinton led by like 5 or 6 in most of our polling in 2016. And then our last one was Clinton plus 2 or 3. So we did underestimate her there, but that was because we saw it was an enthusiasm gap thing. Even if you want to say Nova, got the votes they needed to get, it's just not. It's a tough lift. It's a very, very tough lift. So I don't know. And then they added Minnesota because Minnesota is a battleground state. And we were just talking about that with the Epoch Times earlier this morning before the show went on. So we're going to start with the Rust Belt very soon to answer some of the question I saw, right, Laura? That's when does the Rust Belt start? We're going to do that very soon. I think later today. The questionnaire is basically already done. They want to tweak a couple of things that are specific to the Rust Belt. how it works is like this with a media company. They hire a pollster. The reporters know the issues. The pollster will just tailor the questions to be the way they should be, fair and legitimate. They'll do the survey design, but you get the input from the staff that's hiring you. So they're the ones who know what readers want to know. They're the ones covering the news. The pollster puts input into it, right? So if there was some question that I thought was like over the top and would skew the survey or is like tainting, then of course I would say something. I would speak up, but it'll look generally the same as the national questionnaire does, which you could find at bigdatapoll.com. All right. If you follow Big Data Poll at Big Data Poll on Twitter, anytime we release a survey, the questionnaire will get tweeted, and the APOR Transparency Initiative checklist will get tweeted. Let me give a quick minute about this. Anything you want to know about the survey, how we conduct our surveys, I'm talking about the meat of it, the transparency stuff, you will find in that APOR TI checklist. All right. The only other one I know who does that is Spencer. I'm not sure others are doing it. But after 2016, they launched a transparency initiative, and I happen to be someone who agrees with it. So where did you get the data from? Where is it sourced from? Where did you source the data? How did you design the survey? What does the questionnaire look like? Did you have quotas? Did you have targets? Did you meet those targets? How did you wait? Did you wait? How did you wait? Right? And then how did you come up with your sampling error? Like, you will get the equation. If you're a math person, you go and look at that APOR checklist. That is how we get that ugly big equation. All right. Anything you want, so you will find in that. Everybody should release a transparency initiative checklist. That is my personal opinion. I think APOR was absolutely spot on with that idea. That's a great start. I think there could be more. And if we, with a bigger budget, there would be even more ways to show transparency visually. But, it is what it is. But that's a great start, okay? But Minnesota, getting back to that last one, to answer the CNN poll thing, Minnesota's a battleground state, and it should have been in their numbers. And it is because disproportionately, those voters that back Donald Trump, those kind of voters that are Trump supporters, Minnesota will vote to the, I don't even want to call it to the right, Laura. It's not like accurate to say. I really do believe Minnesota will vote to the Trump of the nation, not to the right, because Trump's not really typical right. He's not. And that's, he is. And actually voters view him to be not really strict conservative. They don't. And by the way, in those areas, that's why the Paul Ryans, the Mitt Romneys, the John McCains, that's why those kind of Republicans get killed in the Rust Belt. The Trump Rust Belt voter, the Reagan Rust Belt voter for that matter, they don't particularly dislike social service programs. They don't. They want their Social Security. They want it to be around. They don't want to cut Social Security. They don't want to beat into programs like that. So, all I would have to say, if I was, the Paul Ryan wing, I think, honestly, really, in general, the idea to have Paul Ryan as the Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives under a Trump administration was a stupid idea. For those of you who don't know the backstory, Mark Meadows, his wife, was a huge Trump supporter. After Trump won, they had a plan to push Paul Ryan out. It would have worked. And in the end, Trump said, I love you guys. I know you're looking out for me, but let's keep him around. Let's not rock the boat. So all of these people who say that Trump is not like a uniter, okay, they really aren't telling you the total truth, because Trump did extend his hand when he became president to a lot of people that worked against him, that were not, like the Republican DC class, that kind of Republican. He reached out to them. He did at every turn. They slap or spit in his hand at every turn. All right. So he keeps Paul Ryan in, and he tells Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows, great plan. Tell your wife, I love her. I appreciate her. And you guys do have a good plan, but let's just keep Paul there. Let's not rock the boat. I don't want anyone to feel like we're excluding them from this. I want to bring everybody along in this thing that we're doing. He did. Even look, guys, Hillary Clinton. I mean, really, So I don't know what else he could have done. They made the decision not to allow him the time, the honeymoon period to try. Every president gets a honeymoon period. They made that decision to not give him a honeymoon period. And the media followed suit, and we never got one as a nation. So we never really did heal and unify like we do, like has been the tradition of the peaceful transition of power. That did not happen this time. And, so when you hear Trump isn't a unifier, he's not now. And he certainly makes comments that aren't unifying. That's just true. All of those critics are right. But I don't know what else he would have. Why would he now at this point? I just don't. It didn't work for him the first time. It just didn't work. But having Paul Ryan there was a mistake, and it was a mistake for his reelection prospects, because the agenda should have been more pro-Trumplican. It should have. That Paul Ryan lied to him about having a plan with healthcare. He lied to you. He went on national television and he lied. He's a liar. Paul Ryan is a liar. He's not this good, decent man everyone on Fox News tells you he is. He's a freaking liar. All right? He lied to the president's face. He lied to your face when he said, look, Sean Hannity. Go ask Sean Hannity how honest Paul Ryan is. You may or may not like Sean Hannity. I personally think he's a bit of a cheerleader, but he lied to Sean Hannity's face. He lied about the plan. He lied about the omnibus bill. He lied about the vote on the wall. Those were all things that those voters in Minnesota that went for Donald Trump really needed. Look at Minnesota. But let's bring that map up again. Right over my face. So let's see if I can do the weatherman thing. Okay. So
I can see your hand.
all of this does not typically, yes, this part of the state is more conservative. All of this, though, right? They liked Barack Obama, too. Folks, go look at Minnesota in 2008 or in 2008 or in 2012. They liked Barack Obama. All this over here, see if I can. I'll get this right. I'll figure this out. All of this around here, look at that. See, I'm not that bad at it. That's the Iron Range that we showed you, the mayors that voted or that endorsed Donald Trump. There was one that spoke at the convention, and then there are he's here, okay, and then there's 6 others that Mike Pence went and did a campaign event with. Why do you think, of course, they're trying to do that? Do you see these light pink, these 2 light blue? You got, let's see if I can do it here. Like right there. And here. Those two counties, Trump can absolutely flip this time. And these 2 can go blue. I was talking with Barnes the other day, and under a certain scenario, absolutely 3 of those could go red for Trump. All right. But the problem would be right around here, where it says you got your Twin Cities, you got your burbs. This will be very important until this violent stuff started kicking off. I would have said Biden might, blew up those areas. But anyway, that is without a Paul Ryan kind of figure, this political realignment probably would have happened a lot quicker and a lot deeper. And now this election will ultimately be whether or not Joe Biden can further blue up these areas with old Republican voters like Bill Kristol, okay, and S.E. Cupp at CNN, okay, that kind of woman voter that claims to be a Republican but isn't, all right, and then whether or not that in this area, and then of course you guys know what's down there, that's light blue, whether or not Joe Biden can deepen those blues, maybe even pick off a couple of those rural areas, maybe not, I don't know. And then whether, that will be offset by Trump turning the Iron Range red over there a little bit. He almost got the Iron Range against Hillary Clinton, and he didn't even compete for it. On the phone the other day, they held a media campaign call, and they said they are all in on Minnesota, and they actually are opening up offices in that area I was just pointing to in the Iron Range. So they're there. And Democrats are not, by the way. Joe Biden is not. And in fact, from what we hear, they're not even welcome there. The Democratic Party in the state of Minnesota is not the Democratic Party nationwide. They have kept their name. which is not the Democrat National Committee, or even they don't even call themselves. Go look it up. You'll see what I mean. On the Democratic Party, they are basically what's the word I'm looking for, Laura?
Demons.
You're terrible. They are ostracized. They are outsiders in the Democratic Party. She's kidding. They're outsiders. They don't view the National Democratic Party as the party of the working Democrat in Minnesota. They don't. So they're keeping their autonomy, and they're not like, they wouldn't even welcome the National Democratic Party there. Those people, you heard him. I don't have to play that clip again. I think I may even still have him, but I don't have to play that clip again. You heard that mayor, and he's not the only one. He's among the more vocal supporters of Trump and the Trump agenda, not the Republican agenda, by the way. That guy will vote for every other Democrat, okay? But he's not going to vote for the National Democratic Party, all right? He's more vocal, but there are others, and they will tell you, and they will just plainly tell you, I am a Democrat. My family has always been Democrats, but I am a Democrat in the state of Minnesota. But the National Democratic Party has absolutely left us, and they have abandoned us, and we are essentially an enemy to them. Our way of life is an enemy to them, and we're protecting our way of life. We don't want our young men to leave the Iron Range. We want them to get good jobs. We don't want them to go get more, learn the code. That is a total insult to them. They'll learn the code if they freaking want to learn the code. All right. They want to be able to live in their homes, their ancestral home, and live the way they have lived for generations. You heard them. We lost a generation of men in the Iron Range who had to leave to go look for money because of, it's just true. I'm not making a political statement here, because of people like Joe Biden who, would embrace them and sure, I'm your guy, and then betray them with these trade deals. By the way, when we come back, Laura, remind me to show people the issues, who people trust on issues. All right. Which we found something a little bit different than others. You might be shocked, but let's take that quick break because it's 11:07 right now. All right. It is 11:07. You're watching Inside the Number. Oh, boom, 11:08. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Follow me on Twitter at People's_Pundit right there, and follow PPD on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit that notification bell so you know when we're about to go live. All right, and also Facebook users, mosey on over to Facebook. We can do better than this, really. Come on. We ignored it for so many years, and now it's time to get a decent, respectable following on Facebook. Like the page on Facebook. All right, not follow. Like the page on Facebook, and follow too. I don't care, but liking and following is two totally different things, and they don't care about the follows. So we are a fact checker. We're a news feed publication, but we don't have a blue check because we just don't have the likes. It's just not, it's just not necessary. All right. So there you have it. So don't forget to do all of that. And the best way to support the show, of course, is to subscribe to peoplespundaily.com, which you can do by going to ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. Last week was a good week, folks, and we thank and love you for it. By the way, brand new economic indicators up there right now. Jobless claims, what's going on with the markets, the Dow, the S&P 500, and the NASDAQ. We're talking about the 22nd for one index record for the year, the 43rd or something record for the other. You got to go check it out. And then if they're interested, I have some inside story on that vaccine. So the New York Times reported something I promised I wouldn't report, but we had the inside story on that. So if you guys do want to hear it, we'll tell you. It's just not what I tend to do for a living. So I hear stuff and just don't blurt it. But the New York Times story is accurate. The vaccine is coming faster than people think. The progress is moving faster. So the Dow loved that. Equity markets in general love that. And that may be an absolute disaster for Democrats in late September or October. All right. So anyway, we'll be back in 2 minutes and change. This is the Grammy considered Bowen band. I spoke to him this morning and asked him when he was going to start selling this thing. Just be patient because we get a lot of people who ask, where can I buy this? I saw the link. I clicked on it. I went to their website. Where is it? They're just not selling it yet. They have production or whatever it may be, you know, but I will let you know when it's for sale. All right. All right. We'll be back after the Bone Band. All right. All the best. Hang tight.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
And we're back. All right. So we're back after that break. That break thing can come down. All right. So for taking questions, get them into Laura. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Follow me on Twitter at People's_Pundit right there. And also like the page on Facebook. Like the page on Facebook and subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Best way to support the show, of course, is to subscribe to PPD. We love you for it. Those of you who do. ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. Jack, I totally agree with that. I don't think that they would ever really allow him to unify. I just don't think so. I mean, look, his inaugural address was not one where it was meant to unify in the way the media thinks of the word unity, because his inaugural address was an us versus them. You know, they have been you for all of these years. That ends now. Well, everybody there, to include the media, is included in they. So they took it as an insult, you know? Yeah, the Monmouth poll, let me just say this, and I'll say this real quick about the Monmouth poll. The Monmouth poll in Pennsylvania, you might as well just take the Biden +1 at face value, okay, on the likely voter. There was no point to release the rest. And his projections in Pennsylvania as far as turnout, electorate, and what it means for the vote has not stood very well against the test of time. If you guys remember the special election between Rick Sancone and Connor Lamb, his projections were exactly opposite. So he projected if the electorate was small, it would be Lamb by 1. If the electorate was larger, it would be Lamb by, I think, hiccups, upwards of 8. It was the total backward truth about that district. And in fact, the vote borne that out. I mean, it proved it true. The more voters that went to the polls in that district, the less likely it would have been that Connor Lamb was able to squeak that out. What Connor Lamb needed was a bunch of Democrats to turn out at much higher rates and a bunch of Republicans to stay home. That is, in fact, what happened. And he barely squeaked out that win against Rick Scone, a horrible candidate. Okay. Somebody who is not a very good candidate for that district, despite what you may have heard. He was not pro-union. He was not a working class Trumplican. You know, Trump tried to bring him up. He was down by 8 overnight in our polling in that district. And he was down by 8 before the Trump rally. Trump brought that within the margin of error, going and saying, you know, steel workers, you know, welders, you want somebody to represent you, you better get out and vote. And he was able to close the gap 6 points, but it wasn't enough. In the end, Rick Sam Cohen needs to, I can't, you know, I don't like to criticize every poll. I see the other one with the Arizona. All I could tell you guys to do is go look at the track records from before. All right. McSally is not going to lose Arizona by 17 points. I would be very, what's the word? I would never put that poll. I wouldn't spike it, but I would say that I would look at, I don't think it would happen because I think we just do things a little bit differently. So we would adjust as we did that before, you know, so we would have had a very close, a result that was much closer until we identified the problem that we were having. And, you know, I just think that I think Fox News, Donnelly +7, McCaskill tied with Josh Hawley, Phil Bradenson. I mean, I could keep going on and on and on and on. It was not it has not been a great poll. North Carolina, 2016. We could just keep going. I mean, Fox News decision desk refused to move that from light blue until the results were making it crystal clear she had no chance. So I try to be nice. I try to play a nice guy, but that's just not enough. And when you're looking at samples that are 400, 500, the participation rates among those voters are so high, you will never get a representative sample if you don't continue to poll and find the voters that you're going to vote. That you have been missing. So look, the difference between all voters, likely voters, and registered voters. Registered voters and all voters are the same thing, basically. Okay. There are adults. That means they're not even potentially registered to vote. That's the difference there. And then likely voters means that the pollster screened that everybody does things that they do different, right? Everybody has different ways of finding a likely voter screen. All right. We are not going to give away ours all the way. You can go read the APOR transparency checklist to see how we did this likely voter screen for the Epoch Times poll right now. Ours will get more strict as time goes on, and I will explain that as time goes on. Registered voter polls should essentially look a lot like the voter file anyway. If they don't, that is response bias. That means you got people that are registered to vote, you got potential voters, and they took the survey at different rates. So you simply did not reach, right? And so the national voter file is D+4. Ironically, our likely voter was D+4. All right. If you see something that is like D+10, it's technically it's response bias, you know? So, and I will just mention the North Carolina in 2008. He did lose it by a couple hundred votes. There's been some great work at George Mason University. Well, John McCain lost it to Barack Obama. There has been some great work, though. There has been new election reform laws in North Carolina since then. They absolutely found illegal residents, non-legal residents who did vote. And it almost certainly accounted for Barack Obama's margin. So, yeah. There you have it. The down may be a bit overblown. maybe a bit overdone here. There was on the jobless claims. I'm answering questions as I go. I see them in my corner of my eye. There's been some issues with the jobless claims, how the media was like spinning that along today, folks, a little bit crazy. There was, and I could pull it up real quick. I don't want to go over everything in total detail to the point where I miss what you guys are asking me. But there is let me just pull back. There is the jobless claims report on People's Pundit Daily. See, claims and insured unemployment, they fell significantly. This is what some people in the market are looking at. And I'll go down here and show you. By the way, you can really see the trend here. This is nice. That's nice. But, and then of course my insured unemployment rate, which I am obsessed with, that was a nice drop right there. And then you can see it in the long-term outlook. All right. This is what some people are really focusing on today because it absolutely is true. And it's in this paragraph. Extended benefits were available in all 50 states, Puerto Rico, and D.C. during the week ending August 8th. That's the beginning of August. For that week, August 8th, the total number of people claiming benefits in all programs was 29,224,546. That was there. Laura's telling me to stick in what. That is an increase of, I think it was almost 2 million. Right. So what happened August 8th, folks? Right. You had the Department of Labor implement Trump's executive order that because Democrats are, like Ted Cruz said yesterday, Democrats are intentionally not passing another economic stimulus. There's nothing Republicans can do. What they're doing is asking for things they know are poison pill amendments. They know Republicans will never agree to. And Ted Cruz, I think he's right. Democrats are intentionally keeping economic stimulus relief out of the hands of Americans before the election. I know that's sad. So in response to that, Donald Trump said people are going to lose these benefits on August 1st. We are going to extend them, unemployment and the pandemic relief benefits, by executive order. I don't think he's got the power to do it. I don't. But Democrats are not going to sue him over it because they'll look like the bad guys. So they're holding those stimulus payments back. They're blocking them, and they tried to block these initial unemployment benefits. All right, and there are different programs for unemployment benefits, but Trump's order went into effect. I did want to mention something else real quick. Nevada, 16.4, Nevada, 16.4 insured unemployment rate. California, 16.3. Puerto Rico, 16.1. New York, 15.2. The insured unemployment rate collapsed. It's great. It fell almost a full point to 9.1. Connecticut, 14.0. Georgia, Louisiana's in there too. You got that energy issue. Georgia, 12.6. The Virgin Islands, 11.8. The District of Columbia, 11.7. And Massachusetts, 11.7. You may recognize those names. And there was an excellent article in the Wall Street Journal, all right, that went over the 5 places with the harshest lockdowns: the District of Columbia, New York, Michigan, New Jersey. Michigan, by the way, their insured unemployment rate was 22% almost at one point. The citizens and the legislature fought back, and they stopped Governor Whitmore. All right. New Jersey and Massachusetts, they had the heaviest caseloads and the strictest lockdowns. Nothing worked. The lockdowns did not work. All right. And that is according to a new study out. Great article. You know what? I'm going to tweet it out. I want people to read it.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to put it in the comment thing, and then let's take your things right from Laura. Okay. I'm just tweeting this Wall Street Journal thing. Let's hope Periscope lets it go through, because folks, this is, I'm just going to write the WSJ article. This way, Periscope maybe doesn't flag it. We had this situation. We made a historical decision. We did these lockdowns. Of course, Periscope will not let it go through. So if you're watching on Periscope, go to PPD on either Facebook or YouTube. Watch it over there, and you will see that on the live chats. I just sent that out for you guys to read. It is a failed experiment. The lockdowns were a failed experiment. There was no second wave in the Sun Belt. There's no third wave in the West and the Plain States, which is what even Fox News is trying to push right now.
But there's millions of dollars of increases in the hospitals.
That's it. They're getting tons of money. This is a scam. This is a con. They're making money hand over fist and scaring the living out of you for political and monetary benefit. That is it. The numbers don't work. JP Morgan Chase said the same thing, Laura. Do I even still have their graph? I may. Well, we'll answer questions. Well, I got you. We'll go to the questions. This is a total scam, and there are no second waves. Viruses move through the population because we did the lockdowns. All we did was slow it from going. It still moves. It still mutates. That's it. The lockdown experiments were failures. There was no correlation in the lockdowns with the slow of the spread. All it did was stop, what other doctors would refer to as herd immunity. The development of herd immunity, which now, for some reason, even doctors on Fox News won't admit is a real thing. It was a total con. And Joe Biden couldn't campaign. Joe Biden could, we'll try not to debate, but he couldn't do all these things. We have to hold a quasi-election because of this. Now Joe Biden's poll numbers started to fall, and all of a sudden he's going out and visiting states and campaigning in states. It's a con, folks. A total con. We could have protected the vulnerable, sheltered the elderly, and continued on with our lives without committing economic suicide.
They didn't even do this with the bubonic plague.
I mean, this is crazy. It was never done in the history of the world. Never in the history of civilization have they ever, by government force, brought commerce to a halt because of a pathogen. Never. Never. Quarantines are for sick people. Anyway, moving along, because it's getting ridiculous because there are still people who are carrying on with this scam. There is no evidence that lockdowns work. None. So all of you, you can't compare Sweden or, people. You're just wrong. You're just wrong. What the hell, right, Slender Fingers? What the hell happened to 14 days to slow the spread? If you go out, you're dead.
Amen.
What happened to that? It turned into 30 days to slow the spread. Then it turned into stop the spread. Then it turned into you don't care about grandma, you care about money. Then it turned into we're not returning to normal life until there's not an ounce of the virus left in society. And then it turned to we're never returning back to normal life. The goalpost has moved on this scam to so much.
I don't know about y'all, but I miss outside eating.
You know what, Jack? The difference is, Jack M, is that I don't do that. I talk to other people. What happened is you got scammed. The Dr. Fauci voices were brought to the forefront while everybody else who talked like sane people were muted. Not everybody is allowed on TV equally, Jack. You see what they want you to see. You see what they allow you to see.
What about all the other foreign doctors?
There were tons of people, Laura, from Yale, from France, right. And Dr. Fauci was one of those people. You can't compare Sweden. You really can't compare Sweden. Well, how come you can compare China? You can't even trust the Chinese data, number one. So the idea we could compare whether the lockdowns in those provinces were working, the idea that we could use them anyway to argue that social distancing and lockdowns would slow the spread or stop the spread was ridiculous. You would have to make the assumption from a modeling point of view. It doesn't matter whether you model elections or you model the spread of pandemics. They all have assumptions. Models have assumptions. And if you're basing those assumptions on flawed data, your model's not worth spit. It's garbage.
But like you said, how what is the word? Oh man, how good are we to hide from it?
Right.
What is the word?
Hubris. Like now we can change. Now we can influence planetary cycles. This is how strong we've gotten as a human species. All right. This is how important we are. Okay. This is how bad our hubris has run just awry. We can stop planetary evolution, and we can stop the planet from doing whatever the hell it wants to do. We can hide and outsmart virus particles. I mean, this is just like the arrogance is it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. All right, so let's move to questions though. Yeah, because now we're at the point where there's just hard data. Let me just close it up with this. There was always some data. The data did not back up what they said, but it was really insufficient. And you don't make brash decisions with insufficient or inaccurate or non-existent data points. You just don't do it. You don't make ahistorical decisions like that. Then as the data started to come in, they supplanted that with the fear factor. So like you weren't allowed to debate that data that was rolling in. They just scared you. And if you tried to do it, then you were, a bad person who was trying to kill grandma, who cared more about your paycheck than, killing people. I mean, this is the nonsense they did. Same thing with school closures, Laura. Same thing with school closures. They didn't care about the antibody levels in kids and their ability to infect adults. They didn't care about any of that. They just didn't. That's right, Trevor. Crappy public health models are the same as crappy polls. Modeling is modeling. If you put crappy data into it, you're going to get a crappy model. Right? I mean, this was ludicrous. Now we do have data. And read that report. You'll see what I'm talking about. It's the same thing. Now they're backing up JP Morgan's analysis. Those are statisticians over there, by the way. They're not money people. They're statisticians. They're backing up what they found. There's no relationship between the dates and the spread.
Jack M can thank Cuomo for all the patients that are being buried in New York because
which he's hiding, right? So those patients, I say this and I'll say it again, those nursing home patients, those deaths, they should be reclassified. Those are not COVID deaths. Those people died from democide, death by government. Government policy caused their deaths, their demise. And by the way, what was the reason and the justification for those executive orders that Democratic governors issued in Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and New York, and Connecticut, I think too, and also Massachusetts had it? What was the justification? Their failed models said that they would run out of hospital beds. Trump could never build them mobile hospitals in time, never get them a ship in time. So they had to move those people out to make room. They made a bad decision based on bad data. And they killed people. He is absolutely responsible for those deaths. That was his call. He listened to his expert.
But he continued.
He listened to his expert, his group of experts. Yeah. Yes, and now he continued, and now he is trying to hide the numbers even from the Associated Press, who you got to give credit where credit is due. The Associated Press has like a team, well, not a team like they would investigate Russia collusion, but they have like 3 people on that story. So give them credit where it's due. They know what happened. Mm-hmm. They're on it. They smell it. They smell it. They're doing their journalism lights are going off. Yeah. He's hiding that number. He's hiding it because he doesn't want you to know what he did, what Wolf did, what Murray did. They killed people. That is a bad look. Maybe it's not that I'm not saying they intentionally did it. I'm saying they made a bad decision. That was their judgment call. And they made a bad decision based on flawed data because their overall motivation was political expediency, right? So they made that decision based on political expediency. They thought it was the smartest thing to do. Nobody ever really argued that there was enough data to justify that. And now, by the way, we have retrospect. There is no correlation. None. The worst lockdowns had the highest caseloads. So, and the dates, they didn't slow anything. All right. So, all right, let's move on. What's the, what do we got? Whoops. That's my fault. I did that. That's why I'm not supposed to touch that stuff. That's why I'm not supposed to touch it. All right, guys. I'm ready when you are. Ready when you are, Chief.
All right. So,
factory orders soared, by the way, 6.4% in July, and they were revised higher for June. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
No, I can't. Did I kill your mic? No. Here. I took you. Let's see.
Yeah,
can I hear you now?
Can you hear me now? Yep.
We can, but it's weird.
For you, maybe. Not for them, I don't think. All right. I'm coming through the speaker.
Yeah,
that's why. Mute this.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, it's weird.
So MV Lock said, if a pollster has a ridiculous Democratic advantage like plus 10, 12, or 14, is this because they are setting out to do this, or is it because they are polling in wrong places?
Our first night. Let me kill that. You unmuted yours. Can you unmute it so I can maybe that's what it has to do. I don't know. Our first night with the map that I showed you first. All right, this first wave. Let me tell you what that meant for the partisan split. This first wave was D plus 13, something ridiculous, right? Or D plus 15, 15, D plus 15. Now, when you look at the demographics of who is responding, it's crystal clear. You could see who was missing and who was overrepresented. So what my point is, it actually is very easy to do that, to mistake that. But it still wouldn't make sense and everyone has different polling philosophies. All right. And not everybody agrees with me, but it still wouldn't make sense in a registered voter poll to release that like that. Okay. And why? It means if somebody or some group is more represented in the poll and there's not a likely voter poll, it's response bias. Now, so the first part of your answer is no, they're not really doing it on purpose. Right now, more liberal groups are more willing to take these surveys. All right. Actually, in 2016, I don't know where they were coming up with some of the stuff they did. We actually found Republicans still not more willing, but we had the reverse problem. Okay. And needed to find more younger liberal groups. All right. We had the complete reverse problem. Now, it's still, though, as far as whether or not they're doing it like that on purpose, like how, because ultimately you're going to get the raw data. Okay. And you're going to look at it and you're going to say, all right, I got to wait for age, race, gender, region, education, if they do, which they should. And when you wait for other things, it changes those other variables. So the only reason a registered voter, not a likely voter, the only reason a registered voter poll would have an unrealistic representation for one party or the other is if they did not reach a representative sample of the public. Because it makes more sense when you get into likely voter models. That is when you could see a party either more or less of their actual, base share of the electorate that they represent. So nationwide, it's 36% Democrat, 32% Republican, 32% independent. All right. That is what it is nationwide. It's a little bit, that's rounding to the nearest whole. It's really more like D plus 4.3. The light likely voter screen that we used made it about a half a percentage point more Republican than the overall voter file. We cast a very large net. Registered voter polls can only be like a D plus 10 or R plus 10 or whatever it may be if they missed other people, because it would theoretically still mirror the actual voting electorate. You're not implementing a likely voter model. That's why I was saying when some of them are coming out with like real crazy ones like D plus 14, I really don't know how you could at the voter file itself, you can only justify like a D plus 4, maybe a D plus 6. All right. Maybe because sometimes things are not always going to pan out as much as they could. Laura, when we waited, it was just under for the Epoch Times poll. It was right on the money, but it was like Republicans were rounded up to 32 to a whole number. But if you really look into it, you'll see it's really like 31.8. Democrats were like 36.4 or something, roughly that. And then independents were around 32.3. So, it doesn't match exactly, but you cannot justify, in my mind, and everyone's different, but you cannot justify that kind of misrepresentation. Really, there should be a new term for it. Like we should create a new term for what really goes on, because it's like a misrepresentation of the electorate. So maybe if it's a little bit of both, but I can't speak to what's in their hearts, guys. I can't speak to what's in their hearts. there are some where they've been wrong over and over. You know how I feel about some of the polls out there. But and if you're wrong over and over and over and over, you would think that you would do an autopsy and then pull a couple things privately. You know, like we've seen, we know other pollsters have done that. And then I really can't speak to what's in their hearts, but that is what's going on. You know, so it is what it is. All I can do is do what I think is best. And like in 2016, we'll see who's right and who's not. You know. All right, what's the next one, love?
All right, I'm just gonna speak closer to your microphone.
Okay, here, check this out.
There we go. Oh, wow, I hear my. All right, so you have a good debate going on between two Jacks, Jack M and Jack Lawton. They're talking about Florida and the 65 plus voter group, and they want to know pretty much who's right. One Jack is saying that he's going to lose the 65 plus because of I'm paraphrasing from all the information from coronavirus and the post office and whatnot. And the other Jack says he'll win them.
That's a really, really good question. As I can tell, I don't know yet, and let me pull it up, okay? I don't know yet what the media is talking about. Let's go to the crosstabs, okay? It is true in the first wave, Biden was kind of holding his own with those voters. I just don't know what we found something a little bit different. By the way, here's race, all right? That's as big as it's going to get. Here's race. So Trump is carrying the white vote. That was much closer in the first wave. But in the second wave, Trump widened out his lead. So this is what I say. This is what I mean when I say that. It is not uncommon for some voters to flirt with the idea, certain groups like white voters flirting with the idea of voting for Biden at higher rates, or black voters flirting with the idea of voting for Trump at higher rates. And then the same goes for age as well. And we saw in 2018, most of the polls did not think that DeSantis was going to perform as well as he did with 65 plus. Same thing was really, and it was more exacerbated in the Senate race, by the way, where you saw Rick Scott not winning 65s like he has won 65s. Okay, Trump is getting absolutely murdered among Asians and other races. That's one of the worst. Biden's very weak. Before I go into age, I just want to point this out real quick. Biden's under age is a little. Oh, this is the expectation poll. Let's go. Yeah, because it's worse among Asians than that. All right, so you can even see how many black voters think that Donald Trump is going to win. All right, but Trump's taking about 12% of the black vote. He's only taking about 17% of the Asian, and other Republicans are getting worse and worse with the Asian vote. And then whites, you can see Trump is carrying whites. That was closer. And then after the conventions were in the bag, were baked into the cake, and then really the events that are going on, that pushed. What happened is we saw them start to shift to policing and crime as their more important issue than some of the other issues. And then coronavirus is number 2 in our poll, and it's very close, but it's receding. It was number 1. It was up there. It overtook the economy. Now the economy has retaken the coronavirus. Coronavirus is slipping. I imagine we'll see it even slip further as we go on, if the trend continues. And policing and crime is not yet in this poll. It didn't overall overtake healthcare, but it was going to. And the trend was clear. And I actually think that it will overtake healthcare very soon. And maybe we'll find something crazy where we're actually surprised, where maybe it'll overtake the economy. I don't even know. We'll see how serious that issue is. But when we saw that, we saw white voters, especially white women, and older voters run back to Donald Trump. So now Joe Biden is playing on Donald Trump's turf. And it's bad for Biden's campaign. That's why he's spending the most ever in the history of an election in 1 week, $45 million to tell the American people on TV and digital that he does not support these riots. Good luck with that. When you're on defense in politics, you're losing. All right. When you are answering for something, you're losing. When you're explaining, you're losing. All right. And they know that, but they have no. What I'm saying is the movement was so strong, guys. They have no other choice. Biden had a nice lead and it evaporated within like 2 days, right? Right? It evaporated within like 2 days. And that was from really the overall picture looks like this. Those voters raced back to Donald Trump. He held the vote that he's taking, surprisingly, a large share of. So 32% of Hispanics, 12% of black voters. Let's look at age, and you'll see what I'm talking about. You can see actually the 45 to 64 age group is a good age group for Donald Trump. The 30 to 44 actually started to split in the final couple of days. The 45 to 64 went to Donald Trump in the last couple of days, and seniors 65 plus really started to widen out for Donald Trump. This is the overall result. When you look at the first, second wave comparisons, you see that movement. It's a lot more pronounced. So my point is, we're now just entering September. It is going to be difficult for Biden like it was for Bill Nelson. We saw that natural reoccurrence happen. Bill Nelson had done very well with seniors, but in this era, the partisanship overtakes. It does as we get closer. Now it's a matter of by how much, but I do think Trump will carry the senior vote. I do. And I just, we'll see by how much it is. Coronavirus will recede. It will. Look, maybe it doesn't, but I have a hard time believing that they'll be able to hold that as that much of an important issue as time goes on. Look what happened. We had a couple of days of the Kenosha issue, and it just collapsed. And then if Operation Warp Speed gives seniors a vaccine, that's who's going to take it, right? Mm-hmm. It'll be seniors who get vaccinated from coronavirus. I just don't. I'm not at all convinced. I'm not at all convinced. Seniors look like they were going to flirt with Barack Obama too, and his landslide went. And they raced back to John McCain at the end. It's the only reason why he didn't get even murdered, even worse, in a lot of other states. All right? If you think Joe Biden's going to outperform Barack Obama, you're living in a dream world. All right? I mean, it would have to be an election that completely collapses. John McCain never had this degree of motivation that Donald Trump has. Never. It just never. I'll also say, too, marital groups raced back to Donald Trump. That's what he has to do. He's got to keep Joe Biden on his turf and keep making him play his game. He has to. Otherwise, if he lets it be that coronavirus election about Joe Biden, Donald Trump's attitude, Joe Biden's going to kill him. But if it's an election about getting the economy back and keeping Americans safe, then Donald Trump's going to win. It really is that simple. It really is. All right.
All right.
Yeah. And I'll tell you this, JK Locke, his enthusiasm numbers among certain groups are very high, which draws up his numbers. But overall, that extremely enthusiastic number is bad. It's not good. All right. Even Hillary Clinton got in the 60s with extremely, Laura. Mm-hmm. Right? He's not even Donald Trump and Mike Pence are about 60, right? Whatever. And, it's a double digit improvement. Joe Biden has not. It's not good. And that turns into people staying home, which is why they want to mail in ballots. I'm sorry. My realist comes out, which is going to be very hard for people like us to gauge, but we'll have to see. All right, let's get one more. Oh, well, let's get to 10 more. We got 10 more minutes.
And then I reclaim 4 minutes.
Oh, here.
Because I reclaim 4 minutes because you stole something.
I can't reclaim 4
well,
minutes.
I'm reclaiming it. Well, Robert Garcia wants to know, will apolitical suburban white woman sink Trump because of COVID? How is the Republican ground game this time?
That's another great question. So it really is a lot about them. In the beginning, it wasn't. And I would say that the media created a self-fulfilling prophecy. It was like a massive social desirability bias campaign against those women. And it wasn't really sticking consistently, despite the 2018 result. It wasn't stick. First term incumbent midterms get their butts kicked, folks. They do. No midterm election says a lot about the next subsequent presidential election. It just doesn't. So what happened and what we saw was, that it really depended on what their issue, most important issue was. They are coronavirus voters, many of them. I'm not saying they are as an entire group, but they certainly contribute to it. In the end, though, what was Biden's lead in suburban in the first round? It was a lot. It was, and then Trump closed it to 6 points. That's nothing. I mean, that's not. They can swap that back and forth multiple times on the way to November. So it will. The answer to that is the answer really to the other question: how much can Trump get Biden to play on his turf? And because coronavirus will not hold up against the economy and jobs or policing and crime if these issues continue, especially true if the economy starts to do a little bit better and people are like, you know what? Trump is bringing us back. I'm going to stay right here. All right. And they may not even tell us that, by the way. Those are those kind of voters that will either lie or tell you they're undecided until November 2nd, right? Mm-hmm. And you got to nudge them and you got to be like, you have to tell us now. Who are you going to vote for? And I'm going to make up my mind when I'm in there. No, you're not. You're going to you're going to mail your ballot tomorrow. You're going to hand your ballot in tomorrow. What is it? But that's American people for you. They're funny like that. So that really remains to be seen. I will say that we are, September 3rd. 2 months is a very long time in politics. And that is true for both sides. If the violence doesn't continue, it will be hard to keep that issue up on Trump's end. And it will be hard for Biden to keep up the coronavirus issue. All right. And there could be a completely new October surprise. I heard the other day, and then somebody texted me a joke about it, but every time he does, then that means there's something in the work. There could be another peace treaty in the Middle East. I mean, 2 months is forever in politics. Oh, yeah. But what we do know now is that if it's an issue about coronavirus, Donald Trump will lose. If it's an issue about law and order or the economy or safety, Donald Trump will win. All right? Unless there's some crazy thing that happens with the economy, like I said. But yeah, Romney did not play to win. All right, let me spin it around.
You just have to spin. Yeah, that's it. Mr. Crispitz, great question. You have the race at Biden +4. Would you consider that within the area, Trump can win the Electoral College?
That is a great question. And you know what? I don't even have to spin this around. There, it's on figure 8. Now they can hear you too. Nice. Forgot that microphone can do that. Yeah. So, and actually, I just heard you sounded great. That's a great question. So Hillary lost by roughly 3 points, right? Just about. Okay. And still lost the Electoral College. I think that what we do know from this new census, while it's not out yet, I think it's pretty clear that the trend will continue and I argue will exacerbate further. All right. That disparity will grow. I do think, and that's why I'm dying to get, that's why I'm like, Laura's always like, I got to reclaim time. If you want me to pull the Rust Belt, you got to let me go pull the Rust Belt. Okay. That's it. That's it. But people, I just got a time in my email. If you want me to pull the Rust Belt, you got to let me go at 12. It's that simple.
Well, then you better that's the time. Answer the question quickly.
And I want to know. That's why I want to know. And I want to get in there so badly because his performance among certain voters disproportionately means more to a place like Minnesota. They just today, I don't know, you guys been on watching the show, maybe you didn't see it. They're basically they changed their scheduling around and there's some tactical and some stuff. Iowa and Ohio obviously look so good for the Trump campaign that they're not going to go there. They may, if they feel like they got to shore it up. They did that in 2016. I thought they were visiting states that were over. And the media polls were wrong. And, that turned out to be the case. But, in the end, it is possible. I have seen an argument where Biden can win by 6 and still lose the Electoral College. I don't know that I'm there yet, but 4 points is definitely, if I was Joe Biden, I would be like not comfortable. like, to the point where I'd want a 6-point or better lead. Maybe 5 or better. I'd feel okay. I'd feel good, but 6 points or better for me. 2 points, 3 points, 4 points. 2 points, I think I'm going to lose. 3 points, I'm probably going to lose. 4 points, I still absolutely could lose. 5 points, I'm feeling a little better.
Safe.
6 points, I'm feeling much better. Anything above that, I'm feeling pretty safe. All right. I've seen that 6-point argument.
Yeah.
I just don't. I don't know.
It's still.
I don't. Yeah, but you know what? He could definitely win by 6 points, still lose the state of Florida. We've seen 8 and still lose. We've done the math where they can win, Democrats, and have 2018, great example. They can carry it by 8 nationwide, still lose the state of Florida, still lose the state of Ohio. It's possible. But once you get 8, you're going to lose the Electoral College, but you're still going to keep states that you wouldn't think you are likely you will. So yeah.
All right.
Oh, that's right.
Pee-wee has a question. How do I get added to your polling list? Actually, many have asked that.
You mean to get the actual poll?
Yeah, big data poll to get them on.
You mean they want to take the poll?
Yes.
We don't do that, guys. It's random.
Told them it's random.
We played a little game. It's just how big data works. Years ago, even we would say, hey, you want to take it? And then when you would take it, it was like just mock taking it. Like you're not going to be included in the poll. But then afterwards, we'd say, hey, would you consider being on it? You got to go through a screen. And if you gave us the okay, and we ran those on PPD and other websites. If you said okay, then we took your email and we deduped it to see if you were really, are you registered to vote? So then maybe you could have potentially ended up on the online panel. Now, this is not the kind of panel we're running, although we do open up panels for market research and other kinds of surveys. So if you were, it's not open right now, but if you wanted, I'll make sure we tweet it out. But if you want to get on a voir dire jury research panel or something like that, we certainly would do that. And then if you fit, what happens is we find out what the jury looks like. And if you fit that jury or something, then we may include you on that panel. All right. But that's a whole other topic. I actually like that a lot more than I like polling. Political polling, as Laura will tell you guys, I don't like. I think it's the worst. I do it because that's where there's money in it. It's about probably 20-30% now only of what we do. So,
but the threats are something.
Yeah. And Slender, just to answer that real quick and then back and forth with the Jacks, I don't think Florida is going to be as competitive as you all think it is. And now Florida is always close. It is always close. But it's going to be very difficult to beat Donald Trump in the state of Florida. You would need like a revolt of seniors. And I just don't think that's going to happen in the end. All right.
Have a good day at work, Jack.
Yeah, it's random, Teresa. It doesn't work like that. You can't stack the polls like that. And then a lot of these other pollsters, they'll tell you, well, the margin of error was so-and-so. The correct term in today's day and age, without getting into the weeds, is sampling error. There really isn't, from the old way of doing things, it is not legitimate to say you are giving a margin of error anymore. All right. Now, there are still some that do random digital dial. That's where you can really say there's a margin of error, but that's not the correct statistical terms that, for it anymore. And some are even should just be flat out confidence intervals. They shouldn't even be, but the correct term is should be sampling error. All right, go ahead.
I have 2 yes and no questions for you.
Okay.
J.K. Locke wants to know, are you polling Arizona?
I don't know yet.
All right. And
I don't know yet.
And Brian wants to know, do we have polls on enthusiasm gap?
Yeah, we do. Let me see if I can cross this real quick.
Okay. And while you do that, John Allen wants to know, is the House in play? Don
Sure.
Silverman,
If it ends, absolutely. If it ends up being let me just say that right now. If it ends up being an election that's good for Republicans, absolutely. The enthusiasm, then the House will be in play. Also, too, I didn't mention this. We asked a voter motivation question, which was really interesting, which said, is your vote more a vote for your candidate or against your opponent? It was overwhelming. If you vote for Donald Trump, you are voting for your candidate. If you vote for Joe Biden, you are voting against Donald Trump. Historically, that ends up being, that ends up being bad, for the challenger. It does. The one, whoever, for some reason, maybe, I don't know what's going on here, guys. Something's oh no, I just hit the refresh and it did it. Okay. Donald Trump has about a 10-point lead on Extremely. He's got a 20-point lead on Not at All. Okay. So Not at All likely Joe Biden there's a 30-point gap on people who are the likelihood of somebody saying that they're not at all enthusiastic to vote for Joe Biden. All right. When you look at if you look at the thing, then basically, it's not a good sign. It's just not a good sign. Because those people in the end probably are not going to go and vote. And then as far as voter motivation, real quick, before we let everybody go, let me update this table. I had to hit the stop thing. Okay, here, let's look at that real quick just to show people. Voter motivation. Come on. All right, so here it is. And if I get rid of the rest of it, then you can see it better. All right. So here it is. Here is your vote for your candidate, Joe Biden, 41. Is your vote for Donald Trump? It is 56. So actually, I thought it was a little bit more. But against the opponent for Joe Biden, look at the difference, folks. They can see that, right? Yeah, you can see that. Look at the difference. 69-24. And then no opinion even, 51-30. I mean, obviously, people are voting for Donald Trump because they are voting for him, not against the opponent. And that, look, in politics, Barnes and I made the joke, but it really is true. In politics, love Trump all. It really does. Typically. Could there be these historical firsts on all these things that people expect Trump to win, but that doesn't happen? People voted for Trump, not against, the opponent, but that doesn't happen. Then that's it. Yeah, Jack, polling in Arizona in 2018 was really bad. I mean, McSally was never down by that much. McSally is a terrible candidate. However, I will say this, Arizona is going to turn in to the western states. That's what happens. And then Texas will follow. That's what happens when you don't do anything about, the state of Arizona. And I'll say this before I close out. The state of Arizona, even the state of Nevada, whatever. Even the state, I did, Nevada, California, Texas, Townsend, Pennsylvania. None of these people ever voted on whether or not they wanted to let all of these people into their country and change permanently the demographics of their communities. They never voted on it. And now they're outnumbered in many areas in California. I'm not saying this, not a conversation about race. I'm simply saying in a society that is supposed to be a self-governing society, to do that, like the Japanese would never do that, by the way. They love and take pride in their culture and history, and they're just not going to allow it. Nobody ever calls them racist for it, right? I'm just simply saying Republicans have been such cowards. They have, because like Nancy Pelosi, they like somebody to wash their shirts for them and press them and starch them,
Or go to hair salons.
Yeah,
and blame the stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that was hilarious. And she was great on Tucker last night, that woman. Yeah, but in the end, Arizona is going to end up. I will say this, though, when you look at the vote in Maricopa County, and some of these polls that are showing Biden with these huge leads, you look in Maricopa County, and then you look at who they called in Maricopa County. I think at the primary vote put that to bed. But I still do think that it is a state that Joe Biden can win. And that Donald Trump will have to offset with something else. In the end, Arizona will go like all of the rest of them will go. Ronald Reagan carried the state of California twice. It wasn't even close. Richard Nixon carried the state of California twice. It wasn't even close. You really have to come to the understanding that those are the long-term demographic changes. And Republicans were a dying national party until Donald Trump came around. There was no other way forward for them unless you do something policy-wise to stop those and reverse those changes, which nobody voted on. Nobody voted on them. If you don't do that, then you have to go to the Rust Belt and to the Northeast, where there are traditionally whiter states that are not yet doomed by demographics, or however the left wants to say, and make your case to those voters. They were never given a ballot that said, do you approve this amendment that says we're going to allow tons of illegal immigrants into this country to have anchor babies? I know that's a negative term. I really don't care. I don't give a damn. To have anchor babies. And then 20, 30 years from now, they have babies and they're all registered to vote and you lose your community. They were never given a ballot that said that. But Republicans sat by and did nothing about it because they want somebody to mow their lawn for them. That's the reality, folks. Democrats want votes and somebody to clean their houses, and Republicans want cheap labor and somebody to mow their lawn. And these things happened over time. People like me 10 years ago were screaming about it, and we were called conspiracy theorists. We were called racists, mongers of all kinds. Going back to even 2012, Laura. Yeah. Good for you, Mitt Romney. You're going to carry the state of Arizona by 7 or 9 points. By 2024, it'll be a Democratic state. You racist, right?
Yeah.
And that was the way it was. And I do think, though, White, I do think that Arizona I'm highly skeptical of these polls. Highly skeptical because I know what the voter file says in Maricopa County. They can't carry Arizona if they don't permanently flip Maricopa County. Maricopa is still R+4 and change, almost R+5, and Republicans have not flexed their muscles there in a long time. And that is their challenge, but then they'd have to do something about it. Also, the Arizona State Republican Party should go over a major rebranding effort of some sort, because you should not win a vote in somewhere like Tucson, about sanctuary cities, and you shouldn't win a vote. Your issue, your position on the issue, win in a landslide, a 2-1 landslide, and yet you still get your butt kicked when your candidate is on the ballot. That is a branding issue. You have a bad brand. That tells me those people don't think you like them. All right, so I'll leave it at that. And that has been on forever. And in truth, the McCain-Romney wing of the Republican Party, they presided over the fall of that decline of that state, and they knew it, and they did nothing. So everyone can mock and make fun of Trump all they want. That is their fault. That is yet just one more thing that they blame Donald Trump for. That is really the root of their failure, and that that's one of the reasons why the political class hates Donald Trump so much. Mm-hmm. He exposes all of their failures, in some way, shape, or form. They have failed on every level, All right, but we got to wrap it up there. It's 12:08, all right? Anyway, we'll take more questions tomorrow on Freewheeling Friday, all right? And there was a bunch of things that I wanted to show you guys that, well, you could do it for a day if I had time, all right? But I don't. Let's get start doing the questionnaire for the Rust Belt. Wrap that up and move along, all right? So don't forget, like the page on People's Pundit Daily. We got to get that those likes up. We can be more respectable than that. And subscribe to the page on YouTube. All right. And then hit that notification bell on YouTube so you know when we're about to go live. But ultimately, the best way to support the show, of course, is to subscribe to People's Pundit Daily for economic indicators and more. All right. And you can do that by going to ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. Do not forget to go over to the Epoch Times. And, if you're an Epoch Times reader, if you're not, become one. And you will get everything on there, including quotes from Wah and everything. All right. So all the best, folks. We'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks for joining. Barnes and what are the odds? That is 2 p.m. Eastern Time on Mondays from now on. Okay. Just to clarify, because we did get questions. What's the deal with that? What are the odds? Will be 2 o'clock Eastern Time. All right. On Mondays. Okay, sounds good. Right now, we're going to keep inside the numbers where it is. We're still going over some of your preferences, but I'm just going to try to make it. I would like to try to just make it work. I like the 10 to 12 hour. I do, but I've just been. So it's just with the polling, it's slamming. All right. So again, we'll see you back at 10. We haven't changed it yet. We'll keep reading over and see what you guys think. But thanks for joining us, folks. Don't forget, subscribe. All right. See you back tomorrow. All the best, folks.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love? Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a night. To give in to the need and leave it all behind. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette.